The microphone squeals through the ballroom. 200 heads turn toward the stage. My champagne glass freezes halfway to my lips. Ladies and gentlemen, Yolanda's voice carries across the marble floors, bouncing off crystal chandeliers I commissioned 15 years ago. Thank you all for celebrating this beautiful evening with us. I stand perfectly still near the dessert table, watching Serafina's face across the room. She's laughing at something her sister said, her hand resting on my son's arm like she owns him. The diamond necklace at her throat catches the light, a gift from her father, no doubt. Everything about her screams money, from her designer dress to the way she holds her champagne flute with 3 fingers instead of 5. 10 minutes ago she called me dead weight. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Before we continue, Yolanda says, and something in her voice makes my pulse quicken, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge someone very special. This wasn't part of the plan. Yolanda and I agreed to keep my presence quiet tonight. Let the Blackwell family celebrate their daughter's engagement without knowing who really owned the rooftop they were standing on. Who really paid for the champagne they were drinking. Who really held the power in this glittering room 52 floors above Manhattan. But Yolanda's looking straight at me now, and her eyes are twinkling with something that looks like justice. Many of you don't know this, she continues, her words dropping into the silence like stones into still water, but the Belmont Hotel has been family-owned for 15 years. Serafina's grip tightens on Dashiell's arm. I can see it from here, the way her perfectly manicured nails dig into his jacket sleeve. She doesn't understand yet. None of them do. Tonight, we have the extraordinary honor of having our founder and owner here with us. The room holds its breath. Someone's phone chimes and gets silenced immediately. The bartender stops pouring mid-drink. This remarkable woman built this empire from nothing, Yolanda says, and I feel every eye in the room searching, wondering, trying to figure out who she's talking about. She's a legend in the hospitality industry, though she prefers to work behind the scenes. Tonight, she's here as a guest, but I couldn't let the moment pass without recognition. Constance Blackwell's champagne glass slips from her fingers. It hits the floor but doesn't shatter, thick crystal, expensive, the kind I specifically chose because it could survive a fall. The sound still echoes like a gunshot. Ladies and gentlemen, Yolanda's smile widens, please join me in acknowledging the owner of the Belmont Hotel and 15 other properties across 3 countries, Mrs. Cordelia Kensington. The applause starts before the shock fully registers on their faces. It swells around me like a wave, 200 pairs of hands coming together, in a sound that feels both like celebration and execution. I stand there in my simple navy dress, the one I wore on purpose because I wanted to blend in, wanted to be invisible, wanted to see what kind of people my son was marrying into when they thought no one important was watching. Serafina's face drains of color. All that expensive foundation can't hide the way her skin goes from cream to chalk in 3 seconds flat. Her mouth opens, closes, opens again like a fish drowning in air. Dashiell stares at me. My son, my only child, the boy I raised alone after his father died. His eyes are wide with confusion, with something that might be betrayal, with questions I can see forming behind his lips. Reginald Blackwell's tan can't hide how red his face turns. That confident swagger he wore all evening gone. His shoulders hunch forward like someone punched him in the stomach. And Constance. Oh, Constance with her diamonds and her fake laugh and her comment about my little house in Connecticut. She's gripping her husband's arm so hard her knuckles have gone white. Phones come out. Dozens of them, all at once, a forest of screens glowing in the dimmed ballroom light. People are Googling my name, pulling up Forbes articles, reading about the empire I built with my late husband Marcus. Reading about how I kept going after he died, how I turned grief into gold, how I became one of the most successful hoteliers in the country while living like a ghost in Connecticut. The whispers start. They spread through the crowd like wildfire through dry grass. That's her. I thought she was just the mother-in-law. Did you see her arrive? No security, no entourage, nothing. She's worth how much? I walk toward the Blackwell family. My heels click against the marble I personally selected from a quarry in Italy. Each step feels like moving through water, through time, through 15 years of building something extraordinary while everyone assumed I'd faded into nothing. The crowd parts. For me, people I don't recognize step back, creating a path, their eyes following me like I'm something dangerous, something they should have noticed before. I stop 3 feet from Serafina, close enough to see the mascara starting to smudge at the corners of her eyes. close enough to smell her perfume, something French and expensive that probably cost more than most people's car payments. Mrs. Kensington, she starts, but her voice cracks on the second word. I hold up one hand. The gesture is small, gentle even, but she stops talking immediately. I heard every word you said behind that column, I say quietly. Just for her, just for this moment, every single word. The room erupts, but I'm already turning away. Already walking toward the elevator with my head high and my heart pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. Behind me, I hear Seraphina's desperate voice calling my name, hear Constance trying to smooth things over, hear the excited buzz of 200 people who just witnessed something they'll be talking about for years. The elevator doors open like arms welcoming me home. I step inside, turn around and watch the scene I'm leaving behind. Dashiell stands frozen in the center of the ballroom, his bride-to-be reaching for him, her family hovering like vultures around a wounded animal. But before the doors can close, before I can escape into the silence I desperately need, I have to understand how we got here. 5 years ago, I was standing in a different kind of room. Smaller, darker, filled with the smell of lilies and grief. Marcus's funeral was held on a Tuesday. The church overflowed with people, business partners, employees, friends we'd collected over 30 years of marriage. I stood at the front in my black dress, holding Dashiell's hand while the priest talked about a man he'd never really known. My husband was 58 when his heart gave out. No warning, no goodbye. Just there one morning drinking coffee and reading the Wall Street Journal, and gone by noon. Dashiell was 28 then, fresh out of business school, full of ideas about joining the family empire. He cried through the entire service, his shoulders shaking against mine, and all I could think was that I needed to be strong enough for both of us. After the burial they came. The business partners, the board members, the lawyers with their sympathetic faces and their shark eyes. They found me in the house Marcus and I had built together, surrounded by 30 years of memories, and they made their offers. Cordelia, you must be exhausted. Running a hotel empire is such a demanding job. Marcus would want you to rest now. We could take this burden off your shoulders. The buyout offer is very generous. I listened to them talk, watched them circle, recognized the hunger behind their concern. They thought I was prey, a widow in her 50s, overwhelmed by grief, ready to sell everything my husband and I had bled for. At the first board meeting after Marcus died, I sat at the head of the conference table in his chair. 12 men in expensive suits, 2 women who'd fought their way into this room just like I had. They all watched me with various degrees of pity, impatience, and calculation. Thomas Brennan, our oldest partner, cleared his throat. Cordelia, we understand this is a difficult time. Perhaps you'd like to defer to Richard on the quarterly reports. Richard was Marcus's protégé, ambitious, smart, absolutely ready to step into the power vacuum my husband's death had created. I smiled and nodded. Of course. Richard knows the numbers better than anyone. They relaxed then, all of them. I could see it in the way their shoulders dropped, the way they leaned back in their chairs. The grieving widow was going to be reasonable. She was going to step aside gracefully and let the men handle business. For 6 months I played that role perfectly. I deferred, I agreed. I showed up to meetings but let others lead. I signed papers they put in front of me with barely a glance. And while they thought I was fading away, I was learning everything. Every loophole, every weak point, every secret deal they'd been hiding from Marcus. I hired investigators, forensic accountants, lawyers who knew how to move in shadows. I found a young woman named Yolanda who was brilliant with hospitality management and hungry for an opportunity. The day I restructured everything, they didn't see it coming. I called a special board meeting on a Friday afternoon. They arrived expecting another rubber stamp session, another easy win. Instead, they found legal documents already filed, shares already transferred, power already consolidated. By the time they understood what happened, I owned controlling interest in everything. The hotels, the properties, the investments Marcus and I had built together, all of it legally and completely mine. Thomas Brennan's face turned purple. You can't do this. I already did. I said calmly, and if you check the paperwork you'll find it's all completely legal. Richard stood up so fast his chair tipped over. Marcus would never have wanted. Don't, my voice cut through the room like a blade. Don't you dare tell me what my husband would have wanted. He built this with me, beside me, as my partner, and I'm going to honor that by making sure his legacy doesn't get picked apart by people who saw his death as an opportunity. One by one they left, some resigned, some tried to fight and lost, By the end of the month, I had a new board, smaller, sharper, half of them women who'd been waiting their whole careers for someone to give them a real shot. And then I disappeared. Not really, not from the business, but from public view. I let rumors spread that I'd sold, that I'd retired, that I was living quietly in Connecticut doing whatever rich widows do. I stopped attending industry events, stopped giving interviews, let my name fade from Forbes lists and business magazines. Meanwhile, I worked 18-hour days from my home office, made deals through intermediaries, bought struggling properties for pennies on the dollar and turned them into gold, built an empire even larger than what Marcus and I had started, all while the world thought I'd given up. Dashiell called me every week. "Mom, are you okay? You never leave the house." "I'm fine, sweetheart, just adjusting." "You should come to the city, have dinner with me, get out." "Soon, I'd promise, I'm just not ready yet." He worried. I could hear it in his voice, see it in his eyes during his monthly visits. He thought I was drowning in grief, becoming a recluse, wasting away in that big house by myself. He had no idea I was building something extraordinary. 3 years after Marcus died, I closed the deal on the Belmont Hotel. It was the crown jewel, a 52-story building in Manhattan with a rooftop ballroom that offered views of the entire city. The previous owner was desperate, over-leveraged, one bad quarter away from bankruptcy. I bought it for 40% of what it was worth. The day the papers were signed, my lawyer looked at me across his desk and said, "Mrs. Kensington, you remind me of a shark, quiet until you strike." I smiled. Sharks survive because people underestimate them until it's too late. 2 weeks later, Dashiell called with news that made my blood run cold. "Mom, I met someone." I was in my office, surrounded by architectural plans for renovating the Belmont. I put down my pen and focused completely on my son's voice. "That's wonderful, sweetheart, tell me about her." Her name is Serafina Blackwell. She's incredible, Mom. Beautiful, smart, sophisticated. Her family is from Greenwich. Greenwich, old money area, or at least that's what people from Greenwich wanted you to think. How did you meet? At a charity gala, she was there with her parents. We started talking and he sighed and I could hear the happiness in it. "I think she might be the one." My stomach twisted. "That's wonderful," I said again and meant it. My son deserved love. He deserved someone who would cherish him the way his father cherished me. But something in his voice made me uneasy. Something too careful, too eager to please. "When can I meet her?" "Actually, her parents want to have us over for dinner next month. Would you come?" "Of course." After we hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, staring at the skyline beyond my windows. Then I picked up my phone and called my investigator. "I need a full background check on the Blackwell family of Greenwich, Connecticut. Everything. Financials, social history, business dealings. I want to know who they are." The report came back 2 weeks later. The Blackwells were comfortable but not wealthy. Reginald worked in commercial real estate, successful enough but not exceptional. Constance came from money that had mostly evaporated 2 generations ago. They lived in a nice house in Greenwich, drove nice cars, belonged to the right clubs. They were also leveraged to their eyebrows. Mortgage, car loans, credit cards all maxed out. They maintained the appearance of wealth while drowning in debt. And their youngest daughter Serafina had a social media presence that told its own story. Every photo carefully curated to suggest luxury. Designer labels, exotic locations, expensive restaurants. All of it financed by her father's credit cards and her family's desperate need to appear successful. I should have warned Dashiell then, should have sat him down and explained what I'd found. But I was 53 years old and I'd learned that people rarely believe warnings about the ones they love. They have to see it for themselves. So I decided to wait, to watch, to meet these people and see if my instincts were right. The Blackwell house was impressive from the outside. Georgian style, 3 stories, perfectly manicured lawn. I pulled up in my modest sedan, a 6-year-old Honda, because I'd never seen the point in flashy cars, and saw the curtains twitch in an upstairs window. Dashiell met me at the door, looking nervous and happy in equal measure. "Mom, you look great." I'd worn a simple dress from Nordstrom and minimal jewelry. My late husband's wedding band hung on a chain around my neck, the only expensive thing on my body, though no one would know it was worth $40,000 just by looking at it. "Thank you, sweetheart." I kissed his cheek and let him lead me inside. The interior matched the exterior. Elegant furniture, artwork on the walls, fresh flowers in crystal vases. Everything chosen to impress, to suggest wealth and taste. But I'd been in enough truly wealthy homes to spot the difference. The artwork was prints, not originals. The furniture was high-quality reproductions. The crystal was Waterford, which was nice but not baccarat. These were people playing a part, wearing a costume that was starting to fray at the edges. Serafina appeared in the hallway, and I had to admit she was stunning. Dark hair swept up, perfect features, a dress that probably cost $3,000. She kissed Dashiell like she owned him, then turned to me with a smile that was warm and cold at the same time. "Mrs. Kensington, so wonderful to finally meet you." Her handshake was brief, her eyes already moving past me to something more interesting. Reginald and Constance swept in with the kind of entrance people make when they're used to being the center of attention. He was tall and silver-haired, his tan suggesting golf in warm climates. She wore diamonds that caught the light with every gesture, her laugh too loud for the space. "Mrs. Kensington," Reginald boomed, gripping my hand hard enough to hurt. "Wonderful to finally meet Dashiell's mother. He's told us so much about you." I doubted that very much, but I smiled. All good things, I hope. Constance's handshake was limp, dismissive. Her eyes flickered over my outfit and found it wanting. "How lovely," she said, her smile sharp. "Serafina mentioned you live alone in Connecticut in that little house." That little house sat on 40 acres of waterfront property worth $12 million, but I just nodded. "It suits me." How quaint, she was already looking past me, already done with me. "Oh, there's the Hendersons, excuse me." They'd invited other couples for dinner. All of them from Greenwich, all of them playing the same game of appearing wealthier than they actually were. I spent the evening being subtly dismissed, patronized, and ignored. At dinner, I was seated at the far end of the table. Reginald held court at the head, telling stories about business deals and golf games and connections to important people. Constance interjected with name drops and humble brags about their daughter's accomplishments. Serafina sat beside Dashiell, her hand on his arm, her laugh musical whenever he spoke. She played the role of perfect girlfriend flawlessly, attentive but not clingy, beautiful but not vain, intelligent but deferring to the men at the table. I watched her watch my son, and I saw calculation behind the affection. After dinner, I excused myself to use the bathroom. Found it on the second floor, all marble and gold fixtures that were probably gold-plated rather than solid. As I washed my hands, I heard Constance's voice from the hallway talking on her phone. "The mother is exactly what we expected. Mousy, broke, she won't be a problem." My hands stilled under the water. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, a woman in her 50s with grey threading through her dark hair, laugh lines around her eyes, no makeup except a bit of lipstick. I looked exactly like what I was. A widow who'd lost her husband 5 years ago and was still figuring out how to live without him. But that wasn't all I was. I dried my hands carefully, walked back downstairs, and found Dashiell in the foyer getting ready to leave. "What did you think?" he asked quietly. His eyes were eager, hopeful, desperate for me to like them. I could have told him the truth then. Could have explained what I'd heard, what I'd seen, what my investigation had revealed. But he was 28 years old and in love, and I'd learned that you can't save people from their own hearts. "They seem very nice," I said carefully. Relief flooded his face. "I'm so glad you think so." "Serafina was nervous about you meeting her parents." I bet she was. On the drive home, I made a decision. I wouldn't interfere, wouldn't warn. I'd let this play out naturally and see if Serafina Blackwell was who she pretended to be or who I suspected she actually was. Sometimes, I told myself, the kindest thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices. I just didn't know yet that I'd be one of those consequences. 3 months before the engagement party, Dashiell called me at 8 in the morning. I was already in my office, reviewing contracts for a property acquisition in Chicago, when his voice came through my speaker, high and excited. "Mom, I proposed," she said yes. I set down my coffee cup carefully, keeping my voice steady. "Congratulations, sweetheart, I'm so happy for you." "Thank you, I wanted to tell you first before we announce it to everyone else." There was a pause, then Serafina's voice in the background. "Actually, Serafina wants to talk to you." Before I could respond, she was on the line. Her voice had that bright, false cheerfulness that made my teeth hurt. "Mrs. Kensington, can you believe it? I'm going to be your daughter-in-law," she giggled. "We are thinking about a spring wedding. Small and intimate. Well, Daddy's paying for it, so maybe not that small." "That sounds lovely," I managed. "And Daddy's planning this huge engagement party for us. He has connections with this amazing hotel in Manhattan, the Belmont." "Have you heard of it?" My fingers tightened on my pen. "I've heard of it. It's supposed to be incredible. Rooftop ballroom, views of the entire city." Daddy says the owner is some reclusive billionaire who never makes public appearances, but he thinks he can work out a deal. She laughed again. Between you and me, Daddy's already talking about buying us a penthouse in the building after we're married. Can you imagine? Oh, I could imagine quite clearly. That's very generous of your father. He is generous. He takes care of his girls. Something shifted in her voice, became almost pointed. I know it must be different for you, being alone and everything. But don't worry, Dashiell and I will make sure you're included in things. Family is important, even if you're not really part of the social scene anymore. The condescension dripped from every word. She thought she was being kind, thought she was reassuring the lonely widow that she wouldn't be forgotten. She had no idea. After we hung up, I sat in my office and stared at the Chicago contracts without seeing them. Then I picked up my phone and called Yolanda. The Blackwells are trying to book the Belmont rooftop for an engagement party. I know, Yolanda said. Should I tell them it's not available? I thought about it, about Dashiell's happiness, about Serafina's calculating eyes, about Constance's dismissive smile and Reginald's condescending handshake. No, I said slowly, give them the best rate, tell them the owner is feeling generous. Yolanda was quiet for a moment. Are you sure? Very sure, and Yolanda, I'll be attending as a guest, not as the owner. I understand. I could hear the smile in her voice. This should be interesting. Over the next 3 months, I watched my son plan his future with a woman who was already spending his money in her head. Watched Serafina's social media fill with engagement photos and wedding planning content. Watched her family position themselves to take maximum advantage of what they thought was my son's fortune. None of them knew the truth. That the modest lifestyle I'd shown them was a choice, not a necessity. That the empire I'd built after Marcus died was worth more than all their combined assets by a factor of 1,000. My investigator kept feeding me information. The Blackwells had tried to get financing for a down payment on that penthouse Serafina wanted. Been denied. They were planning to ask Dashiell to fund it, assuming he had access to family money. He did, just not the family they thought. The night before the engagement party, I stood in my closet deciding what to wear. I pulled out a simple navy dress I'd bought at Macy's 3 years ago. Nothing special, nothing that would draw attention or suggest wealth. Perfect. I left my jewelry box untouched except for Marcus's ring on its chain. Drove myself to the city in my Honda, parked in the guest lot of my own hotel, and walked through the lobby like any other visitor. The elevator rose through 52 floors, carrying me toward a moment I'd been both dreading and anticipating for months. The doors opened onto my rooftop ballroom, and I stepped into a scene of elegance and light. 200 guests mingled under the crystal chandeliers I'd commissioned from a glassmaker in Czech Republic. String lights wrapped around columns I'd personally selected. The skyline stretched beyond floor-to-ceiling windows I'd fought with architects to install because everyone said they were too expensive, too complicated, too much. I smoothed down my navy dress and walked into the crowd. The party is beautiful, every detail perfect. The champagne flowing, the music soft enough to talk over, the food arranged on silver platters by staff I personally trained to excellence. I move through the crowd like a ghost, and that's exactly what I am to these people. Invisible. I watch Serafina hold court near the bar, surrounded by friends in expensive dresses. She's wearing white pre-wedding theatrics, and her laugh carries across the room. Dashiell stands beside her, proud and oblivious, his hand on her lower back. My son, my beautiful boy who grew up watching his father treat me like an equal partner, who saw me work alongside Marcus building something extraordinary, who somehow still ended up with a woman who treats other women like commodities. Constance Blackwell finds me near the windows. Her smile is all teeth and no warmth. Mrs. Kensington, you made it. We were worried you might get lost finding the place. The directions were clear, I say evenly. Well, you're here now. Though I must say, this crowd might be a bit much for someone who doesn't get out much. She waves a hand at the ballroom. All these important people can be overwhelming. Important people, I know half of them. Sat across from them in boardrooms, negotiated deals that made them millions, held their secrets like cards I might play someday. But to Constance, I'm nobody. Just the sad widow in the cheap dress. I spot Serafina and her sister near the dessert table, their heads closed together in that way women have when they're sharing gossip. Something makes me walk closer. Maybe instinct, maybe fate, maybe I already know what I'm going to hear. I position myself behind a large column wrapped in fairy lights. Close enough to hear, far enough to stay hidden. I can't believe she actually showed up. Serafina's voice cuts through the music. My champagne glass freezes halfway to my lips. Who? Her sister asks. Dashiell's mother, the dead weight. Serafina's laugh is sharp, cruel. Look at her standing there in that sad dress like she's at a funeral. Does she even know how pathetic she looks? The words hit like physical blows. I press my back against the column, my heart pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. Be nice, her sister says, but she's giggling. She's going to be your mother-in-law. Please, she's nobody. Dashiell says she basically lives like a hermit after her husband died. No friends, no money, just sitting in that house feeling sorry for herself. My hands clench at my sides. My nails dig into my palms hard enough to leave marks. Between you and slow, this is the moment. I can feel it approaching like a wave about to break. Really? Serafina leans into him. Think we could meet them? Daddy, if you could get an introduction, maybe work out a deal on that penthouse. And it's already working on it, princess. He winks at her, though I heard the owner is a real hard case. Old money, very particular about who they sell to. I'm sure you'll manage, Constance says, you always do. They're so confident, so certain of their place in the world. It reminds me of myself 30 years ago, before I learned that confidence without substance is just noise. Dashiell appears at the edge of our little circle, his expression cautious. Everything okay over here? Perfect, Serafina coos, sliding her arm through his. Your mother and I were just getting acquainted. He looks at me, something uncertain in his eyes. How much has he told them? How much has he believed their version of who I am? Mother, he starts, but I shake my head gently. It's fine, sweetheart. Your future in-laws were telling me about their plans. It sounds wonderful. That's when the microphone squeals. Everyone turns toward the small stage at the far end of the ballroom. Yolanda stands there in her professional best, a knowing smile on her face. This wasn't part of the plan. We agreed to keep my presence quiet, to let the evening unfold naturally. But Yolanda is looking straight at me, her eyes twinkling with something that looks like justice. Ladies and gentlemen, she says, her voice carrying across the space, thank you all for celebrating this beautiful evening with us. Before we continue, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge someone very special. I feel every muscle in my body tense. Serafina's grip on Dashiell's arm tightens. I can feel her confusion, see the gears turning as she tries to understand why this matters. Many of you don't know this, Yolanda continues, but the Belmont Hotel has been family-owned for 15 years. Tonight, we have the extraordinary honor of having our founder and owner here with us. The room goes completely silent. 200 people holding their breath. This remarkable woman built this empire from nothing, Yolanda says. She's a legend in the hospitality industry, though she prefers to work behind the scenes. Tonight, she's here as a guest, but I couldn't let the moment pass without recognition. The applause starts before Serafina's face can fully register the shock. It swells around us like a tide, and I stand there in my simple navy dress, watching as understanding crashes over the Blackwell family in waves. Constance's diamonds suddenly look cheap under the chandeliers I commissioned. Reginald's tan can't hide the way all color drains from his face. And Serafina, beautiful, cruel Serafina, looks at me like she's seeing a ghost. Dashiell stares at me, his mouth open. Mother, you own this place. I turn to him, this son I raised alone after his father died. This boy I protected from the harsh realities of business and money and power, because I wanted him to grow up normal, unjaded, kind. I own several places, I say quietly, just for him. Your father and I built them together. After he died, I kept going. But you told me you were retired, that you were just living quietly. I am living quietly. I just happen to own a few $1 billion worth of real estate while I do it. His eyes are wide, processing. Around us, guests begin to whisper, phones coming out to Google my name to confirm what Yolanda just revealed. In the age of information, my privacy is evaporating in real time. I turn back to the Blackwells. Reginald has recovered enough to attempt a laugh, though it comes out strangled. Well, he says, this is quite the surprise. We had no idea that the dead weight was worth something. I keep my voice gentle, but every word lands like a hammer. That's all right, most people don't. Serafina's face has gone from white to red, her carefully applied makeup suddenly stark against her skin. I wasn't. You were, I meet her eyes steadily. You called me dead weight. You laughed about my sad dress and my hermit life. You told your sister that I probably couldn't afford a decent wedding gift. The crowd around us has grown, phones now openly recording. This will be online within minutes. The Blackwell family is about to become a cautionary tale. Mrs. Kensington, Constance tries, her voice shaking. You have to understand we didn't know. That's the problem, I say. You made judgments about someone you didn't know. You decided I was worthless because I didn't perform wealth the way you do, because I chose substance over show. And Dashiell touches my arm. Mother, please. I look at him, this man I raised to be better than this. Did you tell them I was poor, that I was struggling? His silence is answer enough. I see. The hurt comes then, sharp and real. Beneath the anger, you were ashamed of me. No, he grips my hand. No, you never talked about the business. You said it was in the past, I thought. You thought I'd given up, that I'd faded away into nothing after your father died. I pull my hand free, gently but firmly. You thought I was less than I was. Serafina finds her voice then, desperate and high. We're so sorry, truly, if we'd known. If you'd known I had money, you would have treated me differently. I shake my head. That's not an apology, that's just regret that you got caught. Reginald steps forward, all bluster now. Now see here, there's no need to make a scene. We're family now, or we will be. Surely we can move past this misunderstanding. Misunderstanding, the word tastes bitter. Is that what we're calling cruelty now? Yolanda appears at my elbow, her face concerned. Mrs. Kensington, I'm so sorry. I thought you'd want them to know. It's fine, I touch her arm, you did me a favor. The evening has taken on a surreal quality. Guests are openly staring now, conversations dying as everyone waits to see what will happen next. Somewhere a glass shatters against marble, the sound impossibly loud in the silence. I turn back to Dashiell, my son, my only child. Did you love me less because you thought I had less? No, his voice breaks, never. Then why hide me? Why let them think I was nothing? Because I didn't want them to treat you differently. The words burst out of him, raw and honest. Everyone treats you differently when they know about the money. I wanted them to see you for who you are, smart and kind and strong, not just as an opportunity. I feel something crack inside my chest. Oh, sweetheart. I didn't know they'd be like this, he continues, tears in his eyes now. I didn't know she'd. He looks at Serafina with something like horror. You said those things about my mother. She reaches for him, but he steps back. Dashiell, please, I was just. Just what? Just being cruel for fun. His voice hardens in a way I've never heard before. She's my mother, the woman who raised me alone, who never complained, who gave me everything, and you called her dead weight. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. I say it softly, but it carries. You meant every word, you just didn't expect anyone who mattered to hear it. Constance tries again, her voice taking on a pleading quality. Mrs. Kensington, our families are about to be joined. Surely we can find a way. To what? I look at each of them in turn. To pretend you didn't show me exactly who you are. To forget that you measured my worth in dollars and found me lacking. We made a mistake, Reginald says. A terrible mistake, but think of the children, your future grandchildren. They deserve to have both families in their lives. It's a good argument, a reasonable one, the kind of thing that would work on a softer woman, someone who put peace above principles. But I spent 30 years building an empire in a man's world. I learned to spot manipulation, to recognize when someone was trying to leverage my love against my judgment. My future grandchildren, I say slowly, will hopefully be raised by parents who understand that a person's value has nothing to do with their bank balance, who know that kindness costs nothing and cruelty, no matter how witty, always has a price. I look at Dashiell. I love you, that will never change, but this. I gesture to the ballroom, to Serafina and her family. This isn't about money or hotels or who owns what. This is about the kind of person you want to be, and the kind of person you want to marry. He stands frozen between us, his mother and his bride-to-be, his face a battlefield of emotions. I'm not going to make this decision for you, I continue. You're a grown man, you get to choose your own life, but I will not pretend this didn't happen. I will not smile and nod and let cruelty slide because it's convenient. Serafina is crying now, mascara tracking down her perfect cheeks. I'm sorry, I really am, I don't know what else to say. There's nothing else to say. I pick up my clutch from where I'd set it on a nearby table. The party's paid for, the food, the band, everything. Consider it my engagement gift. Whether there's still an engagement is up to my son. I walk toward the elevator, my heels clicking against marble I chose myself. Behind me I can hear the explosion of voices, shock, excitement, the hungry sound of gossip being born. By morning this will be everywhere. The elevator doors open and I step inside, turn. See Dashiell standing there in the center of the ballroom, Serafina reaching for him, the Blackwells hovering like vultures sensing carrion. Our eyes meet across the distance, and I see my son, really see him for the first time in months. The boy who grew up watching his mother work herself to exhaustion, who sat beside me at his father's funeral and held my hand through the hardest year of my life, who somehow grew into a man who thought hiding wealth meant hiding shame. The doors start to close. Wait. Dashiell's hand shoots out, stopping them. He's breathing hard, his bow tie crooked, his careful composure completely shattered. I need to know something, he says. The hotel, the empire, all of it. Why did you never tell me? I hold his gaze. Because I wanted you to love me for who I am, not what I have. Apparently, I'm not the only one who felt that way. He flinches like I struck him. Behind him, Serafina calls his name, but he doesn't turn. What do I do? He whispers. Whatever your heart tells you, I say. Just make sure it's your heart talking and not your fear of disappointing people who don't deserve your loyalty. The doors close between us. The elevator descends through 52 floors, carrying me away from the party, from the drama, from the son I love more than anything in this world. My reflection stares back at me from the polished walls. A woman in a simple navy dress. Grey in her hair, lines around her eyes, nothing special to look at, but I built an empire. I survived grief that should have destroyed me. I turned pain into power and loss into legacy. And tonight I showed my son exactly who his mother really is. The elevator reaches the ground floor. The doors open onto the marble lobby I designed to feel like coming home. My phone buzzes in my clutch, a text from Yolanda. He's still standing there, he hasn't moved. Serafina is crying, do you want me to intervene? I type back quickly, no, this is his choice to make. I walk through my lobby, through doors I commissioned from an Italian craftsman, into the New York night. The city stretches around me, full of lights and life and possibilities. Behind me, 52 floors up, my son is making the most important decision of his life. And for the first time in 5 years, I'm not there to guide him through it. 3 days pass like years. I spend them in my Connecticut house, the one the Blackwells called Little. 40 acres of waterfront property that Marcus and I bought 30 years ago when it was just raw land and dreams. We built this house together, room by room, making decisions about every doorknob and light fixture and floor tile. After he died, I thought about selling it. Too many memories, too much space for one person, too painful to walk through rooms that echoed with his absence, but I kept it, made it my fortress, my command center. The place where I could be myself without performance or pretense. Now I sit in my office overlooking the water, surrounded by monitors and documents and the machinery of empire, and I wait. The media storm hits within hours of the party. Deadweight billionaire trends on social media. Articles pop up analyzing what happened, dissecting every moment, turning my private pain into public entertainment. Someone leaked the video. Of course they did. 200 people with phones, and at least 50 of them recorded the whole thing. Now the internet has multiple angles of Serafina's face draining of color, of Constance's champagne glass hitting the floor, of my quiet devastation of a family who thought they could judge me. My phone rings constantly. Lawyers, publicists, business associates who suddenly remember we're friends, interview requests from every major network, book deal offers, speaking engagements. I ignore all of it. The only call I answer is from Yolanda on the second day. How is he? I ask without preamble. Still at the hotel. He booked a room, won't talk to anyone. She pauses. Serafina has tried to see him 12 times. Security has turned her away every time per his request. My heart aches, and the Blackwells. They checked out the morning after. Constance was crying. Reginald was yelling about lawsuits until our legal team reminded him that every word his daughter said was recorded and could constitute defamation of character. I close my eyes. I didn't want this. Didn't you? Yolanda's voice is gentle but honest. You could have told them who you were from the beginning. You chose to let them show themselves. She's right, I did choose this. Chose to let them underestimate me. Chose to stand behind that column and listen to cruelty I could have prevented by simply being honest about who I was. But would that have solved anything? Or would they have just been better at hiding their true nature? Is he eating? I ask. Room service 3 times a day. He's ordered the chicken marsala twice. That's his comfort food, right? It is. I taught him to make it when he was 12, the two of us in the kitchen on a Sunday afternoon while Marcus read the newspaper and offered unhelpful commentary. Thank you for watching over him. Of course, he's family. Yolanda hesitates. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. People should face the consequences of their cruelty. After we hang up, I sit in my office and remember Dashiell at 12. At 18. At 28, standing at his father's funeral trying to be strong for both of us. At 33, introducing me to a woman he thought he loved. My phone buzzes with another text. Unknown number. Mrs. Kensington, this is Serafina. Please, I need to explain. What I said was horrible. I was showing off, trying to impress my sister. I didn't mean any of it. Dashiell won't talk to me. Please help me fix this. I stare at the message for a long time, then I delete it without responding. There's nothing I can do to fix this. Nothing I should do. This is between Dashiell and the woman he chose, and whatever comes next has to come from him. On the third day, the doorbell rings at 2 in the afternoon. I'm in yoga pants and an old MIT sweatshirt of Dashiell's, my hair in a messy bun, no makeup. Working from home means I can look however I want, and today I want to look like someone who's given up on appearances entirely. I almost don't answer, but something makes me walk to the front door, look through the security camera and see my son standing on the porch. He looks terrible. His suit from the party is wrinkled, his hair uncombed, his eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. He's holding a duffel bag and staring at the door like he's not sure he has the right to knock. I open it. We stare at each other for a long moment. Mother and son. Two people who have loved each other for 33 years but somehow ended up on opposite sides of a divide neither of us meant to create. Hi, he says finally. Hi. Can I come in? I step back without a word. He walks past me into the house he grew up in, and I watch him look around like he's seeing it for the first time. The artwork on the walls, originals, not prints. The furniture, custom pieces, not reproductions. The floors, Italian marble, not luxury vinyl. All the things he never noticed because he grew up with them because they were just home. I called off the engagement, he says without turning around. My heart stops because of me. Because of me, he finally looks at me and his eyes are full of pain, because I saw who she really was. Because I realized I'd become someone who was ashamed of the wrong things. I want to go to him to hold him like I did when he was small and the world hurt him. But I stay where I am, giving him space to work through this. I've been at the hotel for 3 days, he continues, just thinking about Dad, about you, about what kind of man I want to be. He drops the duffel bag. I went through his office. The one at the Belmont that you preserved exactly like he left it. I had kept Marcus's office untouched. His desk, his chair, his books, his coffee mug still sitting where he'd left it the last day he worked. A shrine to a man I'd loved more than breathing. I read his journals, Dashiell says. Did you know he kept journals? I didn't. He wrote about building the business with you. About how you were the smart one, the one with vision, the one who saw possibilities he missed. He wrote about being proud to stand beside you. Dashiell's voice breaks. He wrote about hoping I'd find someone who'd be my partner the way you were his. Tears are streaming down my face now. I didn't find that, he whispers. I found someone who saw you as an obstacle, as dead weight. And I let her think that because... He stops, struggling, because I was afraid that if people knew about the money, about the empire, they'd only see that, they'd want pieces of us, they'd never be real. Oh, sweetheart. But you knew that, he continues. You lived with that fear for 5 years. You built something extraordinary and then hid it because you understood that wealth changes how people see you. And instead of learning from that, instead of respecting your choice, I was ashamed. I let them think you were nothing because it was easier than explaining why you chose to be invisible. He sinks onto the couch, his face in his hands. I move then, crossing the space between us, sitting beside him, not touching yet, just present. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry I didn't defend you. I'm sorry I let them treat you like that. I'm sorry I thought you were weak when you were actually the strongest person in every room. Now I hold him, my 33-year-old son who's crying like he's 8 again, who's breaking apart because he's finally seeing clearly. You weren't weak either, I tell him. You were trying to protect something precious. You just forgot that the most precious thing was already protected. We sit like that for a long time. The afternoon light shifts across the floor, painting shadows that lengthen and fade. Outside, the water laps against the dock where Marcus used to fish on Sunday mornings. Finally, Dashiell pulls back, wiping his eyes. Can I stay here for a while? I need to figure out who I am without trying to be who everyone expects. You can stay as long as you need. Thank you. He looks around the living room again. Will you tell me about it, about building the empire after Dad died, about what you did and how you did it? So I do. We make coffee and sit on the porch overlooking the water, and I tell him everything. About the board meeting where I took control, about the properties I acquired and the deals I made. About the 18-hour days and the loneliness and the grief I channeled into creating something that would honor Marcus's memory. He listens without interrupting, his eyes wide, seeing his mother clearly for maybe the first time. When I finish, it's dark outside, the stars are out over the water, bright and cold and distant. I want to learn, he says quietly. I want to understand what you built, not to take over, I haven't earned that, but to understand. To be worthy of being your son. You've always been worthy, I tell him, but if you want to learn, I'll teach you. 6 months pass. Dashiell works at the Belmont Hotel, starting from the ground floor, literally. He spends his first month in housekeeping, learning how to clean rooms to the standard I require. Then front desk, then maintenance, then kitchen. Yolanda watches over him, reports back to me weekly. He's good, she says, really good. Asks questions, listens, doesn't expect special treatment. He wouldn't, I say, his father taught him that respect is earned. The media storm eventually dies down. The Blackwell family moves from Greenwich to somewhere less expensive, their social standing destroyed by a daughter who couldn't keep her cruelty private. I hear through my network that Reginald lost several clients, that Constance is no longer welcome at the clubs she used to frequent. I feel no satisfaction in this, just sadness that they never learned the lesson they should have learned decades ago. Serafina tries to contact Dashiell one more time, 6 weeks after the party. A letter delivered to the hotel. I don't read it, that's his business, but he shows me after he's done. It's full of apologies and explanations and promises to change. It's also full of desperation, of someone realizing too late that she destroyed something valuable. What are you going to do? I ask. He folds the letter carefully and slides it into his desk drawer. Nothing, some mistakes don't get second chances. On a Sunday morning in early fall, Dashiell and I stand on the dock behind my house. The water is calm, reflecting clouds and sky like glass. I'm holding a box I haven't opened in 5 years. Are you sure about this? He asks. I nod, I'm sure. Inside the box is Marcus's ashes. I kept them, unable to let go, unable to scatter them like he'd asked in his will. But I'm ready now, ready to let him rest in the place he loved most. Dashiell opens the box. Together, we pour the ashes into the water. They drift on the surface for a moment, grey against blue, and then disperse, becoming part of the lake, part of the land, part of everything we built here. Goodbye, Dad, Dashiell whispers. I promise I'll make you proud. We stand there until the last trace is gone. Then we walk back to the house, and I make the chicken marsala the way I taught my son when he was 12. We eat at the kitchen table, talking about renovation plans for one of the properties, about a new hotel I'm considering acquiring in Boston. Normal conversation, family conversation, the kind Marcus and I used to have over Sunday dinner. My phone buzzes, a new email from my lawyer. The subject line reads, Serafina Blackwell request for meeting. I show it to Dashiell. He glances at it and shrugs, your call, Mom. I delete it without opening. Some people deserve forgiveness. Some people deserve second chances. And some people need to live with the consequences of showing the world exactly who they are when they thought no one important was watching. That evening, I sit in my office and think about everything that's happened. About the party and the revelation and the choice I made to let people underestimate me until they showed their true colors. Was it worth it? The pain, the drama, the public spectacle. I look at Dashiell through the window, standing on the dock where we scattered his father's ashes. He's on his phone, probably talking to Yolanda about tomorrow's shift. He looks peaceful, centered, like a man who's finally figured out who he wants to be. Yes, it was worth it. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their cruelty. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to pretend that cruelty didn't happen. Sometimes protecting the people you love means letting them see the truth, even when it's painful. I built an empire after my husband died. I survived grief that should have destroyed me. I turned pain into power and loss into legacy. But the greatest thing I ever built was sitting on that dock, a man who learned that character matters more than appearances, that kindness matters more than wealth, that being real matters more than being perfect. That's worth more than all the hotels in the world. If you've ever been treated like you're invisible, called worthless, or judged by people who didn't know your worth, remember this. Your value isn't determined by others' perception. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let people underestimate you, then show them exactly